Welcome. I am Mr. Frankel. I am 1/3 of the College Counseling Department. So I want to take you guys back to last year. We had a junior parent night, and you guys were given note cards where you wrote a message to your children about how they might feel about the college process, and some of them wrote notes to you as well. We kept those notes. And what I'd like to do is I've transposed them down here, and I'd like to read some of them to you now. And these are first the kids to their parents. I care way more than I let on. I will try my hardest to get into the best college I can and not be a waste of money. I have no idea where I want to go. I'm doing my best, please know that. I understand the ramifications of my grades, reminding me just adds stress. I want my parents to stop freaking out. SSA's college counselors have got this handled. So obviously there's a bit of a pattern there. Some self-doubt, some worry, some concern. And these are now the note cards that you all wrote to your children. This will all work out and you will get into college. We will be proud of you no matter where you go. There are many different paths to success in life. College helps, but it is not the sole determinant by any means. Pick a school that you feel comfortable with, not your parents. I want you to be happy. Wherever you feel most comfortable and is the best fit is so much more important than the name or ranking. And finally, we love you. So now we are here well into the college process, but these feelings probably remain. Kids with the worry of where we're going to go, maybe a little bit of self-doubt still, and parents still saying, we want to help as much as possible. We love you, we support you. And because we are getting closer to these deadlines, these feelings might be amplified, right, as they've grown throughout the process. So, as we look into this evening, it is important to remember where we started and where we are now, and reopen these lines of communications between the College Counseling Office, the students, and the parents. We want to make sure there is a clear understanding of what is to come in the next few months, and then finally, define how we can work best all together to support the students to get them to the schools that fit them best. So thank you so much for being here, and now I would like to introduce Lauren Lieberman.
Hi everyone, so good to see you here tonight. Let's see here. All right, so here's where we are and here's where we're heading. I always like to know at the beginning, what's to come, how long are we gonna be in here, and when is there like a food part of this? Because I kind of remember that from the invite. So here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna go through just a lot of information on kind of where we are and what's to come. We're gonna try our best to keep this within an hour, and when we wrap up, you will have the chance to migrate over to the black box, which is the room just across the hall, and have some social time and time to connect with each other as senior parents. So this is the overview of what we're going to be doing this evening. Before we go any further, I do want to do really brief introductions of our team. At this point, you pretty much know everyone, but if for some reason I haven't met you before, or you're newer to the school, or we just haven't met, I'm Lauren Lieberman, and I am the Director of College Counseling here. This is my 4th year here at Shadyside. I'm a very proud Shadyside alum, so it was really a lot of fun to come back and work here and see the ways that the school has changed and the ways that the school has stayed the same. You met Lucas Frankel. This is Lucas's 3rd year here at Shadyside, and he joined our team coming from a background of working with kids in a community-based organization in New York City and also doing some direct college counseling with students. We have Julie Hertz, and you will get to hear from Julie. This is Julie's 12th year at Shadyside Academy. And we have Kelsey Williams on our team, and you have probably all interacted with Kelsey. She's over here. Kelsey keeps our team together. Kelsey keeps our engines running at all times. And if you ever really need something, start with Kelsey, because she'll probably have the answer and she'll be able to help you figure it out. A couple other people, we work really closely together as our team, and we are supported by an extended team. We have Sophie Lau here, who is support in everything that we do. Many of you have probably not yet met Claire Logston. Claire is our new Dean of Studies, who is working with us on all things academic. We work really closely with Chad Green in the Dean's office, Bart Griffith, our new president, and the entire faculty and staff of the senior school. So these are the people who are working together to support this college process here. We will certainly take the time to zoom in on the nitty-gritty details and the logistics. But before we do that, let us zoom out for just a couple of moments. Your students are applying to college at a distinct moment in time. They are the class to apply following the largest public admissions scandal in history. As the scandal was breaking in mid-March of last year, we were working hard with the class of 2019 to ensure that every member of the class secured college options that were a fit for them. This summer, I took some time to reflect on the details of the case and the implications for how we work with students and their families. I read the articles, I talked with colleagues, I pored over the court documents, and I listened to a 6-episode podcast called Gangster Capitalism that detailed the scandal. A quick recap of the Varsity Blues admissions scandal for those of you who chose to tune out, because not hearing about it was almost not an option. This accused 33 parents of paying more than $25 million to William Rick Singer, the person at the center of the operation, facilitating both the falsification of student test scores as well as bribes to college coaches and officials. The schemes were elaborate, going so far as to represent some students as recruited athletes for sports that they may not have even played, all with the hopes of getting their kids in to colleges through athletic channels at the school. In sum, 51 people are charged in the case, and over his career, it's alleged that Singer worked with close to 800 families. The scandal made for salacious news. Friends and family members from all over were more eager to talk about our line of work than ever before. The media depicted the case as wealthy parents going over the top, a mix of all the elements the media loves: celebrities, money, college admissions, business leaders, actors, and people who had been seen as the pinnacle of success, engaging in behaviors that were atrocious, all with the goal of trying to help their kids. The motives and actions brought to light in this scandal are sickening to me and to us on so many levels. What they did was illegal and unequivocally wrong. But the sentiments behind the actions were all too familiar. After almost 2 decades in this profession, I've built personal relationships with people on both sides, the college side and the high school sides. Some who were at the very schools directly impacted by this scandal. As we connected this summer, I realized that the effects of the scandal rocked the admissions world in a more profound way than you could ever gather reading New York Times headlines. Lost in those headlines and images was the deep substance that lies below the surface. Issues of trust, faith, the pressures our kids face, the judgments that we face as parents, the nuances of the college admissions process, and so much more fell away with the tabloid-style reporting. How did we get here? Every parent wants the best for their kid. What takes a parent from wanting what's best and wanting to keep doors and opportunities open, things we all wish for as parents, and pushes them into the realm of photoshopped athletic images? As the summer came to a close, I asked myself, how, along with this fabulous team, how we could do an even better job of supporting our kids. What could we take from the scandal into this year that your kids will apply to college? And as you help to guide your students through this process, here's what I hope you will hold at the center of your thoughts, feelings, and conversations this year. Your kid is enough just as they are. One of the most frequent questions I got from friends was, do you think it's possible that the kids didn't really know what was going on? After nearly 2 decades in this profession, I think it's absolutely possible, and likely that in most cases, the kids had no idea what their parents were doing. This was the part of the scandal, perhaps the most heartbreaking. Your kids are amazing. They're smart and talented, they're hilariously funny, they're kind to others, they're passionate artists and athletes and learners and readers and musicians and scholars. They work hard, most of the time, to be the best versions of themselves. And they want nothing more than to make you proud. I was reminded of this again just last week when leading a small discussion with my advisory about our summer reading book, Excellent Sheep. They talked about the fear they have about letting their parents down. When parents overstep, overmanage, or over-engineer their day-to-day, kids internalize the message that their parents don't think they can do things on their own. Kids grow and mature at different rates, and our roles as parents shift in parallel to this. By the time SSA students are applying to college, we see them as the primary architects of their college search and application process, with us as the consultants around them to support and guide. They will rise to the challenges before them, and they will have missteps along the way, but this is what is preparing them to lead boldly into all that lies ahead. Oh gosh, that is not a number 2. That's number 2. Where you go is not who you'll be. The admissions scandal focused on getting kids into a small handful of schools, all with admit rates under 20% and some in the single digits. The very narrow vision of what makes a good school based on overall selectivity and US News rankings is skewing the lens for our students of what matters for college. In the book with this very title, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be, Frank Bruni provides the reader with anecdotes and evidence to work against the commonly held ideal by students in schools like Shady that their futures will be determined and their worth will be established by which colleges admit them or deny them. As parents, I challenge you to make an effort of pointing out and holding up for your kids to see models of success in the ranges of colleges they attended. I looked into some of these people for my own family. Our pediatrician, as well as the founder of our entire pediatrics practice, a group successfully leading in so many ways, both attended Washington and Jefferson College, admit rate of 47%. Our family dentist, who sees everyone in my entire extended family, and so many others they know, graduated from Pitt. Pitt admits over 50% of their applicants. Their coolest aunt attended the University of Delaware. Their admit rate is close to 70%. Some of their favorite teachers graduated from St. Vincent College, Duquesne University, and close friends of our family from the University of Wisconsin and George Washington University and Lewis and Clark, and the list goes on. The language we use around success and where people went to college is important, and our kids are paying close attention. You can start and restart these conversations at any point. It's never too late. Oh, jeez. Oh, wow. And look, number 3, magical. We must act with integrity. When we met with our seniors last week, your sons and daughters, we talked with them about integrity in the college process. We shared our common litmus test. If you find yourself asking the question, how would they ever know if? You have ventured into dangerous territory. One of the recorded conversations from the scandal, we heard a dad saying something like, I'm not worried about the ethics of this all. I'm worried that if we get caught, my daughter's going to be destroyed. What if someone finds out? How would they know if you didn't really go to French club in your sophomore year? Or how would they know if you liberally rounded up those hours of community service? What are our kids internalizing when we call them in sick to work on a project maybe they didn't complete on time? Modeling for our children the highest levels of integrity will allow them to be more whole leaders in our community and beyond. In a piece he wrote for the New York Times in April of 2015 called The Moral Bucket List, David Brooks talks about two sets of virtues, the resume virtues and the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues, he says, are the skills you bring to the marketplace. The eulogy virtues are the ones that are talked about at your funeral, whether you are kind, brave, honest, or faithful. In a pervasive culture that spends more time focusing on teaching and developing the skills and strategies for the resume virtues, we have to work even harder on building the inner character. These 3 points, 1, 2, and 3, when reinforced, help our kids develop these eulogy virtues. I'm the first to admit that it's easy to lose perspective when you see your own kid struggling, whether it's to complete a task or with something more abstract, like uncertainty or fear of failure. While my kids are still in elementary school, when my daughter tells me that she didn't play with anyone on the playground, or my son is struggling to complete his summer homework packet, my instinct is to spring into action. Don't worry, honey, we'll plan a play date. We'll plan 5 play dates. In my head, you'll never have to play with no one on the playground again. And my son, maybe we'll just hire a tutor this summer. Maybe we can help you get that packet done. I want to minimize their struggle, yet I work hard to be patient and stay mindful of my reactions, sorting out what are my own fears versus what my kid actually wants or needs in those moments. By the very fact that you're here in this room tonight, the fact that your kids attend Shadyside, they have many advantages as they apply to college. They have access to some of the very best resources and facilities. They have teams of adults and peers invested in their success. We are so excited to work with them every day and to partner with you to ensure that this process is one of growth and reflection and pride. So let's talk a little bit more about how we're going to do that. By this point, as senior parents, you likely know the school's mission. You likely have heard about the guiding principles. This is a part of everything that we do here at Shadyside. And the work that we do in college counseling is enmeshed into the education. This is not a separate add-on. This is part of a Shadyside education. And so our vision of how we do this is directly aligned with these core values of our school. So the most common questions as any parent approaches any school year is, where should we be? Are we behind? Who do I turn to for help? Who's gonna help them? And what's my role as a parent through the next few months? You'll notice that we've sprinkled in pictures, and these are all pictures from the college celebration day that happens in May, when every senior is at the end of the college process and celebrating and having those moments of pride. I should also say that after this presentation, we will be emailing out the entire slide deck. So if you see something on a slide and you want to remember it, you can take a picture, you can jot it down, or you will have access to these slides. A quick recap, we had all of your students in, and we walked them through much of the information that we're walking you through. And so that's why tonight we are just talking as parents. They've gotten this information. If your kid hasn't yet been in to catch up with us, not everybody has, their first to do is come in and see us and work through these things. Almost everybody came to one of those boot camps, and for those who didn't, we have had a chance to pretty much catch everyone up. But these are the items of sort of where they should be right now and what they should be working on right now. And a quick overview of a timeline. I think we showed this slide last year, but this is slightly updated for these different application rounds. So the first deadlines come in mid-October. Almost no schools have a deadline before October 15th. So we're there now, we're in this window, right? This is college application season. From now till about winter break is when kids will work on their applications. You can see we've broken out here regular decision and rolling admission, early action, the restrictive plans. I'm not gonna go into the details of this at this time. We will have a chance for a little bit of Q&A at the end. But May 1st is when all kids have to decide where they're going to college, however they applied, however they were admitted. That's the date. Oh no. Yeah, tomorrow sounds good. That's the time when your kid will have made their college decision. So if you find yourself thinking, when does this end? May 1st. But the thing is, that's when the decision part ends and the whole new part of getting ready for college and transitioning happens. But in terms of the application process, May 1st is that date. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Julie Hertz, who's going to walk us through more of the who's and the how's.
Okay, so hi everyone. As Lauren said, my name is Julie Hertz. This is my 12th year in the Shady Academy College Counseling Office, so in many ways I've actually started thinking about myself as a senior, just like your children, although I don't plan to graduate in May. Just a quick note about sort of those Q&As. Lucas will be walking around with some note cards. So if you have a question and you want to jot it down, we're actually going to try to do the Q&As a little differently today. So if you have a question that you want to have addressed at the end, we'll take those note cards and collect them so that we can kind of hit at the most pressing questions and still leave time, as we said, for sort of having the social time after the presentation today. If you notice my voice, if you know me, this is not how I normally sound. We have my 1-year-old to thank for that. My pediatrician called it the welcome back to daycare virus. I feel fine, but I don't sound so great. So if you see me with my hot tea, my cold water, I had lemon water before, I'm just trying to keep from sort of squeaking too much. So I will hopefully be able to be heard through the rest of my portion here. As Lauren said, she was talking sort of from an overview perspective. I will jump in now with some of that, a little bit more nitty-gritty information, starting off with some of the roles and responsibilities as we move through this process, thinking about your students applying this fall, and thinking about the different roles and the different support networks that are here for them. Certainly the students are at the center of all of this, and then the rest of us, the teachers, the counselors, you as parents, Shadyside as a larger school, are all working in tandem to support them. Let's not end the show. There we go. Okay. What I hope you take away more than anything from what I'm about to talk to you about is the idea that this is a team effort. We as a college counseling office, we as a school, never want a student to walk away feeling unsupported. So some of the students will connect or use the resources available to them in different ways. Some of them might connect more with one of the college counselors, or might be using you as a resource, might be using an older sibling as a resource, as a friend as a resource. They might be using their advisors. But we want to make sure that they are all feeling supported in some way. Starting off first and foremost with the students, with their roles, with their responsibilities. What you see here, these points, again, we talked to the kids about this at the boot camps. It's really what we led with whenever we met with the students. And if you read through these responsibilities, I for one think that these are hopefully, these are our priorities or values that we hope your students have and all of our students have in all that they do, not just in the college process. You'll see that word integrity around a lot, as Lauren talked about, that acting with integrity, acting honestly in all that they are doing. One of the phrases that we remind the kids of at the boot camp is this idea that with great power comes great responsibility, right? They are seniors now. And it's often really interesting to see how the seniors react to their college process and how the underformers, the younger students, sort of look up to that, and then how it manifests whenever they go through the process. And what we have found is that the classes that are able to come together and really support one another in their process, and again, that might look different for each student, but we really encourage the kids to respect one another's privacy, to act, with positivity, with support for one another. We really just see those students, that ripple effect across our whole community is such a wonderful one, and so we really hope that the class of 2020 will follow through with that trend, and again, being so thoughtful and deliberate about this process. And just also remembering how very personal it is. And so for every student, we remind them as much as possible that though you and your best friend may feel really similar and have really similar maybe wish lists and things like that, your college process may end up very differently for a host of reasons. And again, we hope that the kids can all respect that of one another. So the roles and responsibilities of our office, this is not a comprehensive list, because I think if for any of you who have been in our office, you know that especially in the fall of the year, every day is a little bit different, and what we do really changes on a minute-to-minute basis. If you are with us for the day, you will see that we are doing everything from period to period, from proofing essays, finalizing a list with a student, talking about testing timelines, submitting test scores. We do a lot of communication and conversations with the college representatives who visit Shady Side throughout the fall, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Again, there's submitting of documents, there is following up for documents, there's a lot of communication that happens between the college counselors and you as parents, the students, the rest of the school community, the colleges. So again, please know that every day is a little bit different for us, but what we are doing, I think the bullet point that matters the most on this slide is that all we do is really with your students' best interest at heart. And so our main goal is to maximize their success, to maximize their outcomes and their happiness in this process. The role of the teachers, again, if your children have been with us, whether they've been with us for a year or two or whether they're lifers, we hope that the relationships that they have developed with their teachers are really positive ones, and certainly there's a teacher element to the college process. As you know, they are writing these recommendation letters. Just as a reminder, these are recommendation letters. They are not evaluations. They serve a very different purpose from the grade comments that you read at the end of each term. The teachers do turn their recommendation letters in early enough for the college counseling office to review them all and to ensure that they are all ready to go out and, again, represent our students in the best light. So again, the role of the teacher in the process, it depends on your child, and it depends on their relationships with their teachers and their advisors. A lot of times the advisors will play a really important role in just helping your child stay sort of balanced in the senior year. Teachers can lend insight when appropriate, but generally they are in my experience, there to lend an ear and lend that support. But most of the college stuff hopefully is coming from our office. And as you're now thinking, where do I fit in as parents? We have, there's a big role for you, and at the same time, we hope that you are starting to recognize that in a few short months, your kids will be going off to college and will be living independently and will be responsible for a lot more of their own daily lives. And so along those lines, we hope that you are starting to talk about the students being independent, and whether that means helping them learn to do laundry, using their own alarm clocks, figuring out their own calendars, things like that. We actually strongly encourage that you talk about that now. The idea of helping to organize for them is, I think, a really valuable, really helpful role that parents can play. If you are like me, you're pretty organized, you have to be in your daily lives, right? And helping the kids learn how to use those organization skills. The idea of clearing space, I think, is an important one. Maybe it's a literal clearing of space and there's a college workstation on the dining room table. But what we also really like to think about is helping the kids clear space sort of for college work and for the college process. Maybe that means for your family that even though every Sunday is typically dinner at the child's aunt and uncle's house, maybe one Sunday or every other Sunday they maybe can skip that dinner with the family so that they can use some devoted time for the college process, right? Or maybe there is a time that normally they would go to a younger sibling's event, but for this time they can actually step aside and help them see those times on their calendar, on their schedule, because often what we hear from the kids is that they do feel overwhelmed, right? There's a lot on their plate, there's a lot of homework, there's a lot of athletic commitments, a lot of clubs here at school, so helping them find the space for the college process. I will also say that I think it's really helpful if you can also designate some space that is college-free for the kids. And so what we hear so often is, all my parents can talk about is college. And so if you can, I think it's hard for anybody, but if you can sort of remind yourself that there's going to be some college-free zones as well, and that not every dinner has to be focused around that conversation on behalf of your kids, I think that's really appreciated. They have the questions, but they also really appreciate talking about something else. Again, there's this idea of, just recognizing your children and for the wonderful people that they are, supporting them in their individual process. Communication is really big. So again, just by being here, you all are doing this already, so we appreciate it so much, and we really appreciate this partnership. Okay. Moving on, so this section, this idea of support and tools, so we know your roles, now what do we do? I also would consider this the what's in my folder section. So if you look at the folders that Kelsey put together for all of you today, you don't have to look at them now, but know that what I'm going to talk about is ultimately, a lot of this is included for you to take home and to peruse. Again, I don't want to be redundant here, but obviously a big support tool for your students are the people that they are surrounded by. So certainly the college counselors. The two sort of most human supports that I haven't brought up yet deal with essay work, college application writing, and then the college reps that are visiting Shady Side. So essay writing is one of the major things that we are doing this fall, and quite frankly, right alongside sort of figuring out the list, writing the college essay, I think kids would tell us, is the most anxiety-producing part of the application process. There's such a daunting thing to sort of summarize themselves in 650 words. So please know that we are working with your kids so very much on their essays, on their writing. Again, the yellow box to the right is a handout that you have in your folders. The kids have all been given this handout as well. It details the many, many opportunities that they have to have their essays workshopped, reviewed, edited, and it really, we aim to have as many different opportunities for the kids as possible. So if they are at a very early stage and they would benefit from having a brainstorming session, we have those both with the college counselors as well as with Nathan Hogan, who some of you may know as one of your children's English teachers, but he's also sort of part of the college counseling team in the fall of the senior year, helping us with our essay support. We have workshops on very specific essays, so some of the supplemental application essays that the kids work on. Mr. Hogan has drop-in hours 3 days a week. He has lunchtime drop-in hours. The college counselors have drop-in hours. And there is literally no limit to how many times we will read the kids' essays. So sometimes the kids will say, I know you've looked at this already like 3 or 4 times. Like, is it okay if I send it again? And we absolutely will look at it from the very, very early stages till we're discussing whether a comma belongs here or there. So it's definitely something that we've worked really closely with the kids on. Excuse me. The other portion, again, in this support section that we want to sort of highlight for you is the list of colleges and college representatives specifically that are coming to Shady Side this fall. This list, 113 colleges. We have more colleges coming than we actually have members of the senior class right now. So this is an impressively long list, and it is growing. I think if we probably checked the office email, there will be a rep who has probably scheduled something in the last 2 or 3 hours. You have a copy of this list in your folders, and it's really important to us that the kids take advantage of these colleges that are coming to Shady Side. We are absolutely a must stop when colleges are doing their travel during the fall, when they were recruiting students. If they are in Pittsburgh, they are coming to Shady Side. And we're really proud of that. And we're proud of the impressions that our students leave on these colleges because they are overwhelmingly positive. The students will attend these visits, they will ask questions, they will get to know the reps. It may be a one-on-one visit if they are the only student who attends. It may be 10 or 15 of their classmates all listening to a presentation from a college. But it's a nice time for them to get some additional information about a college. It's also a nice time for them, in many cases, to make a positive impression on that rep. Seniors are allowed to miss class for this, and they have been instructed on how to sign up for these visits, which is an important component for us so that we can plan accordingly and know who's coming. I'll talk in a couple minutes about sort of the sign-up process, just so that, again, you're aware on a larger scale. The up-to-date list is also available on Naviance, which you do all have access to. So if you're wondering, what if college number 114 schedules tomorrow, you can check on the Naviance page. It's on the students see it on the daily bulletin each day. We have a very active Instagram account that is super. It's just super. So if you're on Instagram or any social media, follow us. You'll see the visits for each day there as well. So that's a good segue into technology. As you can imagine, this process is entirely online at this stage. There's a few holdovers in our office where we will ask for some paper documents to be signed, and I'll get to that in a second, but do know that Naviance is where the kids are keeping track of their lists. It's also where you can keep track of what has been submitted by Shady side on behalf of your children. So the Naviance system is how we submit documents for the college application, so you can see what's been sent there. It is where the kids sign up for the visits, again, so we know what's going on. The students will be using the common application. Every one of them has a common application account. If they didn't before those boot camps a couple weeks ago, they do. They do now. There may be other application platforms, but again, these are all going to be web-based. The one thing that I would say to your children, if you are home and you see them working on stuff, make sure they write down their passwords. They have a note in their phone or somewhere so that they can access them, because that's the biggest wrinkle to the technological advancements, is that the login can sometimes be tricky if they're away from their device and they're trying to log in at school with us. In terms of some of the other procedures just to be aware of, the transcript release request form I'll show you in just a moment. You may have some questions about missing school for college visits. Many of you have probably already taken your kids on college visits, whether it was last spring or in the summer, but we do recognize that fall is an important time for students to be visiting colleges. I had a conversation with a student just this afternoon who is really wrestling with, between a couple of colleges right now, and they visited the schools during the summer where they got a really good impression, but they are hoping to now go back, and they're hoping to do an overnight at the one and visit some classes when they're in session at another. So we recognize the importance of sometimes those visit requests during the fall. There's of course course changes, and what I hope you take away is also that the communication piece is really important to us, and we really want you to be communicating with us with whatever is on your minds. So again, whether the questions are really pressing or you're just thinking big picture, I have a question about the spring, bring it up now. This is why we are here for you. Again, as I said, the one sort of the biggest holdout that you will notice in terms of like everything's online, this is an exception. And the transcript request form, you also have a copy of this in your folders. The kids have all been given a copy of this, and we have a big stack of them in our office because the students will use this to officially tell us when they are deciding which colleges they are going to apply to. So a student can fill out one of these forms, a student can fill out 10 of these forms. There's not a limit there. What you will see is that there is a section where we're asking you to sign off on this as well. And so it's important for us that the students are not just turning in these lists and saying, here's my college plan. We want to make sure that someone at home knows what's going on as well. And so if we get one of these forms without your signature on it, we will be sending your child back to get it. If your child is in the boarding program and you don't necessarily see them every night at dinner, there is a place where there's a box to check if the kids are in the dorms, and we will scan a copy of this to you and email it to you just to again confirm that you understand the colleges that your child is applying to. Okay. So we're really doing really well here in terms of timing. I'm sorry that I'm doing all the really like nitty-gritty stuff and not so exciting, particularly now that we're going to turn our attention to financial aid for just a minute. That usually brings the room down. I like this cartoon because it talks about if we could go back to kindergarten and start over, and the irony for me is that I have a kindergartner, and it makes me a little nervous about saving for college. What we want to think about right now for financial aid, really big picture comment that I will just make, and we hear this from families year in and year out, is we'll figure it out when the time comes. We know that college is expensive. We're going to turn in our financial aid forms. We're going to apply. We're going to see what happens, and we're going to figure it out in the spring. And we really encourage you, and maybe some of you have heard me say this before, so it might sound like I'm pressing the repeat button, but we really want you to have the conversations sooner rather than later with your children about affordability and what really is realistic for you as a family when it comes to the college process and funding college. Sort of holding your breath and waiting to see what happens, or waiting to talk to your kids about it, often sets the kids up for really a lot of disappointment in the spring whenever kids get into dream schools that just are not financially viable. So it's a conversation that we would encourage you start sooner rather than later. In terms of forms that you're going to be familiar with, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, the CSS profile, which is run through the College Board. Many colleges have institutional forms. These are all things that we want you to be familiar with. We want you to know a little bit about the lingo. I'm not going to go into great detail about them today, largely because the financial aid process does differ so much for each family that we want you to know if you have questions about it, please come to us. Please reach out to your child's counselor, and we will be more than happy to talk through what the process might look like for you, or even filling out forms with your child. So it's something that we are comfortable with, but we just recognize that it does differ for every family. One note about timing is perhaps if you are someone who went through this process maybe a few years ago with an older child, it has moved up in timing. It is earlier now, and the FAFSA and the CSS profile are both available for the current senior class in October of this year. So October 15th, those forms are available for you to start filling out if you so choose. The last note that I'll just make here is that net price calculator is something that is mandated federally, that it be on every college website. And so as you are having those conversations about affordability, about the realistic possibility of funding some of these colleges, go to the net price calculator for each of the schools that your child is looking at, and enter the information and see what comes out and have that conversation with your kids. I'm a product of college loans, and I often talk to kids about that, and it's scary and it's big, and it's also a part of life, and obviously we want to prepare our kids for the future, and so we just wanted you to know that we are here to support you through this process as well. Okay, so now that I've completely just killed any good vibes that we had going, I'm going to hand it back over to Lauren, who's going to give us a little bit of historical perspective and sort of wrap things up as we wrap things up this evening. Okay.
Okay, home stretch, almost there, almost done. Julie talked about the transcript request form, and one of the important details there is that we ask for that form 10 school days in advance. We're preparing a lot of applications, and part of what we're trying to do with kids is help them plan ahead. We work on calendars with them. We have had kids in this week, we'll have kids in next week where we say, okay, your deadline is November 1st. Let's talk about where you need to be each week before that. And the reason is because there's a lot of applications that go out, and we want to make sure that everything goes out on time as it's supposed to go. So just some sort of framing numbers to wrap your head around. Usually we process about 1,000 applications a year out of our office, so that's why we ask for lead time. The average number of applications per student is usually somewhere around 7. So goal list is 6 to 10 or 6 to 9. Obviously, if the average is 7, some kids fall above that, some kids fall below. The average number of admit decisions per student is usually between 3 and 4. The variance is sort of whether you include those early decision kids, they only obviously have 1 admit. About 55% of the class usually applies in one of those very restrictive rounds, and about 90% of the class submits at least 1 application in some way by December 1st. So that's sort of perspective on how big is the list usually, how does this usually shake out. I don't know if your kids will fall right at the average, but this is kind of big picture what some of those numbers look like. I'm going to pause for a moment. I know you've been given note cards. If you want to write a question down on a card and kind of hold it up, Lucas will come around. We wanted to try this tonight to see if maybe multiple people had the same questions where we could start and address, but certainly no pressure there. Okay, so where do Shadyside students end up going? I think this is one of the statistics that we are most proud of, and I think that really distinguishes us from some of our neighboring schools, is that in last year's class, a class of 125 students, they were admitted to 186 schools, and they attended 73 different schools. Just in the past 4 years, they are at 161 different schools. They're in the US, they're abroad, they're on the East Coast, they're on the West Coast. Your students are part of a pretty broad Shadyside network, and sometimes they don't always feel comfortable even if they know somebody from last year's class went to a place where they're visiting, they're like, oh, but we weren't really friends. Shadyside students are really eager to help other Shadyside students get to know their colleges. So it's something that we encourage them to do. It's something you can encourage them to do. And when you're out there looking at schools or when your kids are trying to decide, chances are they are connected through social media to whatever student is at that school currently who might have gone to Shadyside, and that can be a really big help. As we come to a close, I think it's really important to circle back to this whole senior year notion, and it's about way more than the college process. They have so much choice in so many different areas. So these opening meetings are so exciting because I find myself saying to kids, this is so cool. You finally get to really do all the things you love, and some of the things you really didn't like, you don't have to do anymore. How cool is that? And they are more excited than they've ever been before. I mean, student after student in these opening days has said, like, I actually really like all my classes, which that's awesome. That's what we're going for. And we really see that in this year. They're the leaders. They remember what the leaders were like when they were underclass students. They can do independent studies. We have an awesome senior project program. Like, there's a lot going on this year beyond applying to college and getting into college. And so we try to see them in a lot of those places, and we try to work with students and families. We have a goal that every meeting we talk about something that has nothing to do with their college process, right? We care about you as people, and we care about you as families, not simply as a college application robot, right? You can talk to me about things other than simply applying to college, and that's really a huge part of this year. I think the other thing to really recognize, I had a really intense conversation with a senior parent the other day, and very much like strategies and numbers and essays, and then at the end I said, wow, like, your kid's awesome. I bet you're gonna really miss them next year. And it was like, oh my God, you have no idea. I can't even think about when they're gone. My daughter went away for 5 nights this summer, and this mother said, I almost jumped my daughter when she came home after the 5 days. I was so excited to see her. And that is normal. I mean, that is what is going on in the senior year. Your kids have all this exciting stuff, and you as parents have a lot of feelings as well, like, wow. You know, and I think these pictures are some of those. As you see those first day of pictures, like, there's a lot going on this year, and some of it's related to college, and most of it is not at all related to college. So as we said before, we are really active on social media. Kelsey is basically the mastermind behind our social media, and it's awesome. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram, if you're not on Facebook, you can actually see the stuff that we're posting on our website. Every one of you has access to a page on your kids' class pages. It's College Counseling for Seniors. We post information there. And this is a picture of last year's class on that day in their college stuff. In just a few months, it might seem far away now, but this will be your kids. And we are so excited to see how these upcoming months unfold. And thank you so much for being here and for partnering with us. And thank you to the Casey Delaney and Naughton families for sponsoring the reception this evening. Are there any questions that you didn't want to write on the card, but you really want to ask? Awesome. Well, we welcome you to come in. Somebody asked me out at the entryway, like, do we have to schedule another meeting? How does this work? It is up to you at this point. You can come as often as you want, or you can come in never again. You can call us regularly, you can email us, you can step back and assume that we're gonna reach out to you if we need to pull you in. We're gonna reach out to you when we have really exciting news to share, but that, you know, you can be as involved or uninvolved. If you have specific things you'd like to talk about, we really welcome you to come in. You can email us, you can use our online calendar, you can call Kelsey. There's a lot of ways to get in and see us and talk specifics about your kids. So No questions. Do you guys have anything? All right. Yes, Sophie.
Do you want to say a little bit about the senior projects and how that, how that calendar works? I know that wasn't queued up, so I'm happy to chime in. But
Sure. Senior projects are a chance for students to develop a project, and it happens in the last 3 weeks of the third term. So it doesn't affect anything about their schedule, other than they will complete their coursework 3 weeks early and spend those 3 weeks exploring a topic that they are very interested in. So it could be something like a professional job shadow or experience. We had a student last year build a motorcycle. We had it and brought that motorcycle into school, which was super cool. What were some of the other projects? We had a very talented senior put together a cookbook, and that cookbook was a culmination of some Pittsburgh history recipes. That was a pretty cool project. Job shadowing, medical things. We had a person, Koji wrote a musical last year that was insane. It was awesome. And then we got to see some of that. We had a student, learn a fast food industry and work like a line in a fast food restaurant, basically, and kind of learn the management track, but also the food prep. We had some more academic things. We had things in the arts. We had musical talents. There's a wide range of what a student can do, and they have an on-campus advisor. And then if they're working, we had a student work in our own alumni and development office, and that was pretty neat for her to get a look into that world. So October is, I think, when they start to get a lot of information. I don't remember the exact timeline, but kind of like by winter break, maybe they've got to submit something, and then they get feedback, and then they have to tighten it up. And there is I'm like, there's a minimum number of hours you have to put in each week.
it's 25 hours that they put in, and it really, I would just say, my daughter made the cookbook, very kind of, but it's a really awesome opportunity for kids, and I think the kids that did it got a lot out of it, and some of the kids that didn't do it were a little envious that they hadn't sort of pursued that. So definitely, we set up the deadlines was after the college process, after a lot of the early applications are due, so they don't have to do anything about it right now, but it is, if you're looking for something to talk about that's not a college topic, that might be something to talk to your kids about, because most of the juniors came and saw the senior projects last spring with the idea of hoping to plant some seeds for that, but we really are hoping a lot of kids will do it because the kids that did got a lot out of it, and we hope it will grow. So that's my plug.
Okay. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for your partnership. And we will stick around if you want to kind of bounce anything off of us right now. Otherwise, schedule a meeting, come on in, call us, and you are welcome to head in for drinks and food and schmooze. Have fun.